I recently recolored some of my old Pokemon SCPs into their shiny versions for some YouTube shorts, and that got me really excited about doing some other alternate types of Pokemon. Specifically for today, Megas, because we just got a bunch of new Mega Pokemon in Pokemon ZA. Plus, my subscribers voted on this as the topic for today. But I really love alternate versions of Pokemon, and I'm likely to work with more in the future. So give me some suggestions in the comments if you have some specific favorite ones, like a really cool Paradox Pokemon you like, or a really cool Gigantamax Pokemon, or a really cool whatever those Crystal version ones were called. And of course, if you're new here, subscribe so you can see what I might end up doing with those. But for now, let's get into some Mega SCPs, shall we? Let's go!
Hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like, but either way, enjoy the show.
Good evening, everyone. Today's lecture will be a rather exciting one, as we will be discussing some recent trials done on entities within the SCP-P subcategory. While it may not have been discussed in past lectures, due to it once being redacted in discussions to operatives with clearance level 2 and below, the Foundation has been active in developing stones, with the ability to push certain SCP-P entities into their latter stages of metamorphosis, or evolution, to use a technically incorrect but colloquially used and accepted term. These stones have been referred to as evolutionary stones, but now, an alternate form of them is in active development due to some recent discoveries. A new substance has been found, one that arrived on Earth in the form of a meteorite around 4 months ago, but there is evidence that more of this substance has come to Earth previously, and we were simply unaware of it. By isolating and synthesizing this substance with our previously studied evolutionary stones, as well as with DNA from select entities, the Foundation has been able to grant the creatures enhanced forms, with exceedingly increased power and abilities, though in some cases this transformation has proven to cause pain to the entities, and they cannot hold the form for an extended period of time. The first entity we attempted this on was item number SCP-P160. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures. This is the third evolutionary state reached by previously discussed entities P158. They are housed in an aquatic site designated Site Cerulean until they reach their P160 form, at which point they are moved to an isolated aquatic tank to prevent harm to other entities. The specific entity we discussed today, P160-4, was one of the entities on trial in the now-defunct Project Red, in which field operatives were attempting to form bonds with entities for use on field missions. Description: P160 in its common form is a 7-foot 7-inch bipedal blue crocodilian entity. It bears many similarities to its form as P158, but is much larger, has a more rounded head and snout, and is far more violent. Professor Elmsworth was instrumental in the process of synthesizing this new form of evolutionary stone, enough so that he was given the privilege of naming it, dubbing them Meteor Evolution Stones. It should be stated that a meteor is technically the streak of light caused by a meteoroid or meteorite. A meteorite is the actual object that makes impact with the Earth, but I acknowledge that this is a pedantic correction, and the more technically accurate term, meteorite metamorphosis stones, is much more of a mouthful. Anyhow, Elmsworth felt that given P160-4 had gone through some training to become an asset to the Foundation and work well with our operatives, even if that ended in the loss of a field ops arm, this meant that it was the perfect entity to try giving a meteor evolutionary form to. Elmsworth placed the created stone in the entity's containment tank, and the entity promptly devoured the stone, with no evolution occurring. Elmsworth then created another stone with a similar composition and, strangely, found that while wielding this second stone, he could feel what he described as a telepathic link to P160-4. While it was discovered almost coincidentally, the transformations have now proven only possible if two of the same stone is made. One must be held or consumed by the entity whose DNA is imbued within it, and the other must be held by a conscious human participant. The human involved must then focus on the mental link to the entity, allowing the energy of the stones to be awakened. Once this was accomplished, a form of radiation, still not yet classified, surged out of the stone within P160-4, and it rapidly metamorphosed in a way that, frankly, appeared somewhat painful to the creature. The entity's musculature increased, its dorsal plates transformed, and it grew a massive crimson skull that sprouted from its upper back. Using that and additional teeth-like plating that grew from its arms, it was then able to form what essentially appeared akin to a massive additional jaw that can close over the entity's actual head with a bite force 10 times that of its already viciously powerful jaw. P160-4 was able to remain in this enhanced state for 5 minutes and 16 seconds before it naturally returned to its common form, unprompted by Elmsworth. There is still much we are learning about this new substance. We have now discovered that it is very likely the same substance which can cause the previously discussed entity, SCP-P383, to enter its primal form, which we now see may be its own meteor evolutionary form. Some of this very substance has been found in the walls around where this creature is contained, likely having crashed to Earth far earlier than the samples we are currently using for experimentation. Though, interestingly, P383 does not require a conscious human assistant wielding a keystone, as the ones held by the human counterpart are tentatively being called, to help reach this form, as other entities studied thus far have required. The next entity we attempted to transform was one that had been experimented on using a prior evolutionary stone. After having attempted multiple times to retrieve entity P025, a rodent-like entity with electrical conductivity abilities from the cryptozoologist Satoshi Matsumoto, online alias Ash Ketchum, we were able to locate another wild entity of this same classification to keep in containment and study. Some time ago, an evolutionary stone with a specific bioelectric energy signature was put into its containment, and it promptly absorbed the energy and evolved into a new state as item number SCP-P026. Object Class: Safe. Special Containment Procedures: P026 is currently housed in Site Kanto, which was the initial biome created for SCP-P entities when the Foundation was aware of far fewer of them. Readings of the entity's bioelectrics are to be taken twice daily. If the voltage within its body exceeds 8,000 volts, it is to be taken to isolated grounded housing where it can safely discharge this energy before returning to Site Kanto. Description: P026 is a 3-foot 11-inch orange rodent appearing somewhat similar to its prior evolutionary form, but with a far longer tail, longer ears, and a slightly leaner build. Because a regular evolutionary stone had proven effective in making this entity evolve into its current state, it was considered a suitable selection for meteor evolutionary trials. 2 stones were made, and once again Elmsworth held the keystone. The entity was taken into the grounding containment used when its bioelectricity builds to a dangerous level, and the trial commenced. This time, the transformation appeared far more painful for the involved entity, though it was still able to take on a new form. Its fur lengthened, it grew in physical stature, and it gained 2 new antler-like appendages stemming from the base of its ears, which seemed to expel far greater levels of electricity than it had ever proven capable of in the past. Unfortunately, it only remained in this state for 1 minute and 36 seconds before returning to normal, in what has now been dubbed Trial Y. Elmsworth considered that he and his contributors had done something wrong in their experiment forming the stones, and so they attempted to make another set of them, configured slightly differently, to try again. While the entity did actually take on a slightly different form, turning yellow in color and sprouting an additional tail, there was no noticeable change in the pain levels of the transformation or the duration of the change, lasting only 1 minute and 32 seconds during Trial X. Its abilities gained did seem different in the 2 forms, but this was difficult to measure given the limited time the creature remained in each. Oh, the weather outside is frightful. So read the colors and PopCross books, they're delightful. And since it's the season 2, part with your dough. Buy some books, let's freaking go. Do you truly believe that song covered enough information, Benny? Absolutely, it's gonna be the most successful PopCross ad yet. Buy a book, everybody, prove me right. The Amazon and Blurb bookstores are linked in the description. A theme that emerged was that if the person wielding the keystone, attempting to evolve a specific entity, had a strong history or connection with the entity, then the transformation undergone was less painful, and is more stable for a longer period of time. Elmsworth had studied and worked with P160-4 during Project Red, which allowed it to remain in its altered state for a longer period of time than P026. Because of this, Elmsworth then began working with operative Tsukushi Ishikawa. He works regularly with insect-like entities kept in the Ruby Sector biome. He is even often referred to by his coworkers with the nickname Bugsy because of his affinity for bug-adjacent entities. The entity that he has fed, studied, and interacted with most in his time in the Foundation is item number SCP-P015. Object Class: Safe. Special Containment Procedures. All P015 entities within containment are currently housed in the Ruby Sector biome, with multiple other SCP-P entities. They have proven very reliable to contain, though they can become aggressive and violent with other entities if not fed regularly, or if other entities threaten or approach their nest in the southeast region of the biome. If any entity does show signs of threatening the hive, operatives are to intervene in full body armor to prevent being stung by P015 stingers. Description: P015 in its common form is the third and final natural state of metamorphosis for P013. It starts as a larva-like worm entity with a stinger on its head, becomes a sort of pale yellow cocoon with eyes as P014, then finally emerges from its cocoon as P015, a 3-foot-tall hornet-like entity with a stinger formed on its lower abdomen and 2 more emerging from the ends of its arms. All 3 of these are able to expel venom that is lethal to humans in a high enough dose, but the Foundation has long since created an anti-venom for any operatives stung by the creatures. The one in question today is P015-2. It is the specific creature operative Bugsy has formed a relationship with and regularly feeds. It has still shown some signs of aggression towards him and would not be trusted to be taken on field missions as an asset, but it was considered suitably close to an operative having a bond with one of the SCP-P entities. A DNA sample was extracted, 2 meteor evolution stones were formed, and operative Bugsy was given one of them. In an isolated containment, for the safety of other Ruby Sector biome subjects, the experiment to transform the creature was undertaken. With operative Bugsy holding the keystone, the entity was able to change into an enhanced state, and the pain levels recorded during transformation were minimal, though the process was clearly not comfortable for the creature. Still, it shifted into a form in which it grew an extra foot in size and gained 2 additional stingers, also able to administer lethal doses of venom. It remained in this enhanced state for 11 minutes and 11 seconds before returning to normal, making it the most successful trial thus far. Now, while everyone involved in this new set of experiments is interested in seeing what all entities we can grant these temporary enhanced forms to, after this specific experiment, it became clear that perhaps not all SCP-P entities need be given one. Item number SCP-P121. Object Class: Safe. Special Containment Procedures. The 3 entities of this type we have in containment are housed in the previously mentioned aquatic site Cerulean with other water-based entities. They are not particularly aggressive, but operatives entering this site are to wear suitable protective gear for the other entities housed in the same site. Description: P121 is the second and final form of natural metamorphosis for P120. It begins life as a starfish with skin nearly as durable as stone. In its first stage, it is golden in color and has a crimson gem in the center of its body. When it evolves, it becomes purple in color and gains an additional set of 5 appendages, almost appearing like 2 starfish stacked on top of each other. These creatures also have telekinetic abilities and can hover off the ground, though they spend much of their time within the water. Like the substance being utilized in these trials, it is speculated that this entity may very well be extraterrestrial in nature itself. The first of these, P121-1, was brought into containment by Operative Misty Kasumi, and she has been the one to feed and tend to the entity's wounds since its arrival, making her a suitable candidate for this set of trials. Similar parameters were set to prior experiments, putting the entity in isolated containment temporarily as a meteor evolution stone was stuck to it, and Kasumi held the keystone. When this entity evolved into an enhanced temporary state, it surprised everyone involved. This is of course a very subjective opinion, but thus far the entities to go through this transformation have looked, to use a somewhat juvenile term, significantly cooler than their prior form. This one, frankly, just looked strange. It essentially just became taller, and instead of being able to float through both the air and the water, the entity's lower appendages stretched out into legs and it began to walk on them. The transformation was so limited and unusual looking that we initially considered that perhaps it had not worked as intended. But all the readings and stats pulled from the experiment showed that the energy radiating off of it and its own physical strength enhancements proved it did indeed go through the intended transformation. It seems some entities simply go through much more dramatic physical alterations than others, which itself is an interesting measurement to have noted on this matter. We are going to be moving forward. Some other trials have already been completed, which I could discuss, but if you have clearance level 3 or above, we are currently taking proposals for entities in the SCP-P subclassification to attempt these trials on. So please bring them forth or leave them as suggestions in the comment section if you are watching the video version of this presentation. Though, please be reasonable with your proposals. Some have suggested we try creating meteor evolution stones for entities not within the SCP-P subclassification. It was even suggested that we see what would happen if this was given to SCP-682, the notorious hard-to-destroy reptile. As I would have presumed to be true for anyone who has had the slightest interaction with this vicious, spiteful entity, I personally hope to never in my life see an enhanced version of this monster. Operative Foreshadow, why are you texting me a laughing emoji and winky face during my presentation?
Okay, art-wise, this might be the new Best SCPs episode, but if you enjoyed this, I'd recommend checking out something like my recent Dandy's World SCPs episode, or if you just want more Pokemon, I've got tons of Pokemon SCPs. I've turned Pokemon into dragons and superheroes and Godzilla monsters. Tons of cool stuff you could check out. But besides that, that's all for today, except of course we're ending this video on some kind of positive or inspiring note, and the thought I want to leave people with today is just the reminder that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that your thoughts are arising to. And a lot of the time, your thoughts are just straight up lying to you. So if you're having some recurring negative thoughts, it's always a good idea to ask yourself, even multiple times, is this true? Do I know this is true? Do I really definitely know this is true? And a lot of the time you'll find you don't. And once you realize the thoughts aren't true, you can consciously start choosing to think some better ones. So I hope that's an inspiring or helpful reminder. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next video next Friday, because there's no video coming on Monday. I'll see you there. Goodbye.